I'd like to invite our speakers on the stage, so please come in. Yeah, please, round of applause. Yeah. You're gonna.
Testing, testing.
Okay, so now I'll ask our our attendees in the panel to introduce themselves. So you can please start in some direction.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evelyn Ivanov. I'm the head of development for the DHL Competence Center. I've been around in the IT industry for more than 15 years, and I'm super happy to be here with you.
Thank you.
Hey folks, my name is Dimitar, and I'm Director R&D at VMware. I started in the IT industry before it was cool, in the late 20th century, before the internet as well. It's still going, it's great. Welcome here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Myers. I used to work in C++, and I wrote a couple of books and did some consulting, and I'm retired and taking a vacation in Sofia.
I think this one is working. Yeah, hi. I'm Andy Gumbrecht. I'm on the project management committee for Apache Tommy for the last 10 years or so. I'm also a developer at the Eclipse Software Foundation on the EE4J, and I'd be a fool not to mention that we've just got a book published called Testing Java Microservices, and there's a speech later today about it.
Hi, I'm Stefan, head of the Bulgarian Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I'm tasked with saving the souls of developers.
I'm not sure how I can top that, really. My name's Ewan, and I'm a senior integration engineer at the Financial Times. So I do a lot of work around infrastructure, Kubernetes, Docker, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Steve Cost, and I'm a head of lead at an information security firm. Started my life in software and then gradually migrated into application security.
Hi everyone, I'm Dimitar Kolev, Senior Manager at Accenture, Bulgaria. Before that I have been a position of Head of Development at Javelin Group, more than 20 years development, still practicing even though performing manager activities, mostly as consultant and architect. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Girgana and I'm the head of HR of VGT Interactive, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Hi everyone, I'm Thomas Metcalf. I'm a machine learning engineer at Rasa, which is an open source framework for understanding language and building chatbots.
Hello everyone, Plamen Tsekov, CEO of ScaleFocus, one of the biggest Bulgarian software companies. Have been in programming since 10 years old. Now I mostly program in Excel and Outlook. But still have a few insights on the work.
Thank you for the introduction. Now let's kick off this presentation, this panel with the following question. How does the new technology will affect the growth of software development? I mean AI. Will AI displace software engineers soon? What do you think? You can raise your hand and a microphone would land into your hand and you can use that. This is how it's going to work out. Sure. You can go ahead.
I have the microphone already. I think AI actually will greatly impact the future software development. Why? Because currently humans are creating more and more data, and actually the functional and the decorative kind of programming style will further emerge because we have to process more and more data, more kind of data-driven queries, and the old procedural, old-style way of programming, which started many years ago, will go leaner and leaner. And actually, this is what technologies are changing. In the future, we will have more AI modeling, neural network modeling, deep learning modeling, that kind of stuff. And everything, data is the new petrol. And the developers and the programmers will have to think even more than they are thinking right now when writing code. That's my opinion. So,
I'd add that worrying about developers being displaced by AI today is a little bit like worrying about overpopulation on the planet of Mars. I mean, things like, imagine in America only, there are more than 3 million truckers right now, which are going to be out of a job in what, like 30 years or the like. So I think for developers to be displaced, so we are talking about artificial intelligence capable of interpreting our requirements and producing software on demand. I think that's well beyond singularity kind of stuff. So it's thinking about it and trying to predict what exactly is going to happen is a bit like asking the people from the Iron Age how electricity is going to change society. It's fundamentally unknowable in my opinion, and the flying spaghetti monster alone knows exactly how it's going to work out.
Thank you.
So I know a lot of the talk ends up being around AI in the day-to-day work lives of developers, but one thing that I think is actually having an impact right now is the use of AI in, say, recruitment. And I think Amazon recently announced that they're actually rolling back some of their algorithms and ways in which they recruit things because they found that the data that they used for this, because it was biased, ended up meaning they ended up with very undiverse teams and that candidates weren't getting a fair representation. So I'm not sure if AI will have a day-to-day impact just yet, but I think it's already having an impact on recruitment and teams and forming and things around there. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that. But
I think that following up on that, because you actually indirectly made a really important point, and that is when you start incorporating things like AI or other black boxes, which it's not clear exactly how they come to the conclusions they come to, it's going to make it much more difficult for developers to have certainty that their software will behave the way that they want it to behave. And if the software misbehaves, it's going to be much more difficult for them to reason backwards to try to figure out how the software came to that conclusion in the first place. So I think one of the impacts of these technologies is going to be it's going to be much more difficult to produce systems that behave correctly and even harder to debug systems that behaved incorrectly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, you know, AI has been around a very long time. It's not a new thing. So it's gained momentum recently, and it appears to be something that's kind of new and taking off. But AI has been around for 20 years easily. We've used it in image analysis for circuit boards, for errors on circuit boards, maybe 15 years ago. And in that kind of sense, it's safe. What I don't particularly like, and I think the European Data Protection Act is a step towards protecting us, so you, me, and everyone else, against the misuse of the information. So they're mining information at a rate that they can't analyze it in a human capacity, and they're applying AI to try and sift useful information about us from that information. And I think that's a kind of danger for the future. But I really enjoy seeing the real data applications of AI and how it helps us analyze real problems rather than social problems.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Go on, please.
Okay, thanks. Well, so there's a bad news and good news for all of us folks. Coding as such, and that's something that's right now done predominantly by developers. This will become commodity sooner or later. And this is one of the things which AI can become really good at, because really soon everybody will be able to code. And AI is very good at things which are commodity, which are pretty much a daily thing for many people. So that's the bad news, that coding probably will be replaced at one point in time by specialized AI. But the actual solving of the problems, this will remain our future job. So the good news is we have a job in the future, but we have to think and prepare and go for it.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, that in reality what would happen is most likely the job would become much more harder because of using the AI. And it's very true what we're saying here is that in the future you would still be there, you would have the need for the person to solve the puzzle, to resolve the problem. But yes, you would have the option to have the AI do the easy thing for you. So in the future, most likely we are going to evolve like everything else that is evolving. It's just gonna take us to do much more complicated things. So the simple tasks would be outsourced, and we will just need to evolve and solve more complex type of problems.
Okay, to add something from my side. I also believe that the point in time for developers to be replaced by artificial intelligence is still somewhere in the future. But I see that the artificial intelligence has been used in a very good way as a tool to help in multiple areas, like tedious job, very time-consuming job, checking enormous, vast repositories of data, etc. And this is going to be exploded in the future a lot more and explored a lot more. But definitely I stay behind these words that we won't see artificial intelligence writing their own code and solving the tasks, just observing the society. I always expect there will be either developer or there will be a new name for this person who will navigate the artificial intelligence and will make the human factor in the machine to solve complex equations in the future. So probably this is the way we should see all this virtual reality, augmented reality, combined with artificial intelligence to be applied slowly and expanding the area, but not completely replacing. Of course, this will put new challenges to all of us to be much more intelligent and not looking down to the bytes and bits, but looking much, much higher, solving social problems, solving manufacturing problems, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should move on to the next question because we have a few. What do you think about the profile of the software engineer and how does it change over the years, like now and in the future?
Well, software engineers are nowadays getting laid. I think it's a big change. It leads to organic reproduction of the missing skills on the market.
Okay.
Yeah, software engineers are cool now. That I agree. But if we don't change, if we don't evolve, we will become like just the regular folks. So no more the coolness part. So yeah, we definitely need to change. What the new profile will be. Definitely people who are much more social, much more easier to work with multiple people, with huge amounts of data, and actually solving real life problems. Not so much less focus on the technical part and the technical side of things, much more focused on the solution part, on resolving stuff. If we want to remain cool, and we need to be much more balanced. Right now we have just one lady on our panel, and that needs to change.
Okay, I'm sure somebody has a different opinion than that.
Yeah, I would like to mirror those comments, especially because, I mean, as a machine learning engineer, I'm mingling with more machine learning engineers, and the one thing I've noticed is that a lot of them tend to have come from like physics backgrounds, chemistry, more like classically mathematical backgrounds, rather than being computer scientists. They sort of adapted their old skills to the new tasks. So I think that's definitely one way I've noticed how the profile has changed.
Thank you.
I think just one of the things you were going to see, with AI coming in and potentially handling some of the tasks and moving to become much more complex and handle much more complex problems through development, one of the things we're going to be facing is the ability for us to interact and communicate and be much more diverse, to be able to pull in information from a lot of different environments and different disparate systems and pull that together to solve these more complex problems.
Sure, I'm going to go. Yeah, I kind of feel like the developer has changed from being more, I always like to focus on like the artistic side. So a lot of people think that it's just logic, and I always thought, well, I have a blank bit of paper and I write 500,000 lines of code on that. That's pretty creative. That tends not to happen anymore. That's kind of old school. We're very much now following agile processes, and we take small problems and we solve them in an iteration. There's no such thing these days as a full stack developer. So if someone says I'm a full stack developer, just be very, very wary of them. They might think they are, but the problems and the scope has become much, much larger. So you have to decide what you really enjoy doing and focus on that as a developer rather than trying to do it all. Obviously, knowing a little bit of everything is useful, but you can't know everything today compared to the way you could learn it 20 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, that's a very important point indeed. The tasks are bigger and they take bigger teams. So it's more and more social type of work, and the social skills become even more important than the purely technological skills.
I can continue on to that. Before, years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in order to be a good developer, the good developers and the good software engineers had to really understand very well how the computer system, the hardware is working underneath. So technology was much more important in order to really to produce good programs. Right now, what we see over the years, technology has changed so much, so it's not so hard to be, so you don't know the underlying infrastructure to be a good developer anymore. If we continue in the future, most of the things will get automated with AI, as we discussed, so the developer focus, the software engineer focus, will move more on the problem rather than the technology, which means the really productive software engineers will have to have much more exposure on the business problems, the practical problems, in order to think of a solution. And technology will be a circle for very close circle for less numbers of developers who will just maintain the technology. That's my viewpoint on that. But definitely practicality and being more on the social, on the business, on the thinking side, this will be the job profile.
I think that's a really, really important point to make, and especially with the way in which we work these days, having people with different experiences, backgrounds, and things like that. So we've partnered with a company called Makers Academy in London for the last few years now, and what that does is it lets people from other careers effectively retrain into becoming software developers or engineers. And some of the people that we've had from that company are genuinely some of the best developers that I've ever seen in my life, because they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're teachers, they've got a whole huge range of experience. And they approach problems in such a different way that I would never think to even attempt doing that. But for them, it's because it's new, it's fresh, and because they're really, really driven, they can approach a problem and solve it in a completely different method than I'd expect. And I think it's really important to have that mix and diversity and that sort of breadth of experience across lots of different things. So.
Yeah, definitely to manage that diversity, to have the collaborative edge on developing things, that is one thing that definitely would change. There wouldn't be unfortunately no longer the years of caveman development. That's not going to happen. We are moving away from that. We are collaborating with the business. We are collaborating with all of the people talking about agile and how we are working together with different types of people. It is one of the things that is happening and is going to maintain in the future. In addition to that, being able to communicate, to collaborate with your folks would be a mandatory stuff. Not only technology would help you get there, but you would also need to have these social skills to enable you to get your message across. Because oftentimes there is where we fail to get our message across. We being the technical specialists oftentimes find hard to talk to business people and things like that. So you would need to understand how to talk in a technical language to a non-technical person and vice versa, things like that.
So basically what you're saying is we should not be learning Java, we should be learning English, German, French, Bulgarian.
Well, some comments from my side on two of the things that have been raised. Our colleagues speak about deep specialization, but I would like also to stress the other way around. We have seen technologies changing so rapidly in the last years that while you have to, of course, be professional and deep specialize in something, you have to be prepared to constantly learn and actually explore everything that is coming your way, because tomorrow it might be too late for you. I won't say too late because we are still in a big hunger for developers, but if you want to be always prepared for the future and really do your job properly, you have to prepare in advance and not wait for the technology to be already everywhere and then you decide, okay, I may need to switch now. Also, the social factor that is introduced within developers, it's really important, especially the company like the one I represent. We do mostly integrations. Of course, we do pure development, but not in this big scale like a product company. So for these integrations, we start with the product. So you have to have the business thinking, you have to have the culture, etc., in order to accommodate this product as fast as possible and to do only the necessary programming to make it specialized for the particular case. So it's really a period of change for developers. And the soon all of us accommodate and all of the colleagues accommodate to this, the better they will position themselves.
Thank you. I think we should move on to the next question, which is actually a very controversial one. So what do you think about discrimination in IT, and is it real? I just want to point out, maybe this question is a bit ironic, given that we have one woman in our panel of maybe 13 people. So maybe she can...
I think that I can talk only for Bulgaria, I'm sorry, but that's the only market that I know so far. And because my sister is also a developer, I can totally say that 15 years ago, there was some kind of discrimination for sure. And men were considered better developers, and of course, they were better paid. Now I would say that we are very happy when a woman comes to an interview because I don't think that we underestimate women in our business right now. And me as a woman, I can say personally that I feel very much appreciated by my male colleagues. So no discrimination. Thank you.
Just a note, just a quick note from me. We have a very strong plan to go to 50-50 by year 2020. So we can see that a lot of efforts have been put on the very high level in the many companies to put this mix in place and be a reality, not just talking.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Scott had...
I just want to comment that I come from the world of C++, so the rest of you should start checking your phones right now because you're worried about pollution. But when I started teaching C++ initially in the 1990s, it was not uncommon to go to companies where 40% of the developers I was talking to were women. That, over the next 5 or 10 years, dropped down to essentially zero, to the point where it was not uncommon to go to a conference and someone would say, "Are there any women here?" And somebody else would say, "Yes, I saw her." And This doesn't directly say that there is discrimination. What it does say is that there is a process, and at the end of the process, half of the resources have been lost somewhere along the line. So I think that it's a very serious problem. It's more serious in some areas than others. It's more serious in some countries than others. But certainly in the world that I was in for many, many years, it continues to be a big problem, especially in the United States and Europe. I will also remark, as a personal opinion, that I think it's difficult for, in this particular case, the only woman on the panel, to be indirectly asked to speak for all women who are involved in programming. I think that puts her in an unfair position. I would not want to be asked to speak, for example, for all Americans or for all white men or anything like that. And so it's not clear to me that some of the attempts that we make to improve the situation actually do improve the situation. And I am well aware that by saying that, I may be making the situation worse, and I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just have to absolutely agree. I mean, people may not be experiencing much discrimination in the workforce, but the fact that there is only one female up here shows there is discrimination in getting there. The other point that I'd like to make is when you have something like this, especially when we're going to AI and the data that's being fed into this, the output of this homogeneity is going to create more discrimination in itself. And so right now, I think it's absolutely critical to try to expand and get as many diverse people into this workforce as this boom is taking place.
Can we have a look how many women do we have in the audience? Great, just look around. So things are starting to change, and we really need to continue and improving that. My teams, since long time ago, like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, were normally probably at least 20–30% women, and that had great effect because it's a really every type of diversity, actually, not only by gender. It brings additional viewpoint and additional ideas to the table. So the least thing that we can do is to actually start building teams which are much more social in the sense of diversity, and also talking with everybody. In the past, it was a rarity to meet a programmer on the street. But now it is changing. Now it is easy to meet an IT folk on the street. We need to, and this happened through popularizing the art that we have, or the profession that we have. We should do this much more in the schools and in our normal life to motivate women to join. And it's a good example that we actually already have a lot of you in the audience. Next year, a lot of you in the panel as well. So yeah, and motivate more people to do that.
Thank you.
I think it's
sorry.
important.
I think in Bulgaria, so the data, so the women which are occupied in the software industry around 30% and a little bit more. And we in Bulgaria, also this is valid for Eastern Europe, it's quite a good number compared to Western Europe and United States. Maybe some of the roots about that are kind of historical, because in Western Europe and United States, that industry started much earlier, and actually the whole traction came from the gaming industry. While here in Eastern Europe started much more later as an industry, as a big number of people coming into the industry when technologies have already emerged. C++ days were already over. It was a really heavy duty to be a programmer in the C++ days. And right now, the industry, it's not only coders and developers, but for example, in our company, there are a lot of women who are also, there are developers, but also very important positions like business analysts, project managers, quality assurance, which are data analysts as well, so data people. And that kind of So the skill is not only coding right now, so it's social, it's talking, it's eliciting requirements, thinking out of the box, speaking with customer representatives, and the job is different. So I think there is more and more room for improving the diversity here because the industry will change. So these are the good news. And the technologies, the bloody technology days, there are no many, there is no more to take care about memory leaks. That was really hard back in the days. So this will enable more people, more women to come into the industry.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note as well that none of this gets better and none of this will improve without everyone's help, without everyone's support, and trying to make the workplace a more inclusive place as well. And I'm sure people have worked in, I'm very lucky to work for a company that puts a lot of effort into diversity and inclusion. But I've worked in places before where my colleagues have made sexist jokes to my friends and made them feel very uncomfortable, and eventually they've left and things like that. And I think we are now much more at a point where we can stand up and say that's not okay, that's not cool. Or at conferences as well where people are being inappropriate. It's much better to make your voice heard and to stop that from happening so that everyone feels more comfortable and feels able to share their sort of like thoughts and experiences at work or in places like this as well. So, but yeah, that's my
Thank you. We can move on to, oh, you want to say something? Sure.
Yeah, one last thought on the subject. Let me mansplain gender discrimination to you now. I think the bigger problem is not so much in our industry, but in society as a whole. What I see from being a father of children of both genders, to my daughter, everybody gets for presents pink unicorns, and to my son, they give cars and bows. So people get pigeonholed quite often before even they decide on what profession they are going to pursue. And with this generation, it's a lost cause, don't fool yourselves. But for the next generation, please, if your son wants to do ballet, let him. If your daughter wants to play soccer and play with cars, let her. And please don't buy bloody pink unicorns to people with young daughters. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's a very good point to end the discrimination in IT in general. So we should have time for one more question. This one is a local one. So what do you think about Bulgaria as a software development destination? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak.
I love it here.
Yeah, from
It's
the name of
pretty
the
good.
industry. So Bulgaria have risen a lot during the last decade, and right now it's more and more in the focus of the software industry development. I mean, from the geopolitical perspective, things which are happening around us even moves further more and more interest, big companies to establish here. Also, the startup community is very strong. So yeah, we can be proud of that, that for kind of 12 years we turned this into a really modern industry of the young people, of the so-called middle class, of the people who are thinking and approaching differently the society. So I'm also personally proud of that I stayed, because I had the opportunity to immigrate 20 years ago when I was a student, but I decided to stay, and I really love that I'm here right now in Bulgaria, and to have that kind of... we are really emerging right now on the world scene.
So yeah, maybe one more note on
Yeah.
Bulgaria, and then we can let the audience ask a few questions.
Okay. Another typical representative of Bulgaria is my colleague. I started my career probably before year 2000 as a software engineer. I spent like more than 5 years traveling to US, Canada, and other countries just to see how it is to work there, to come back, work here, etc. Then I found that I can work for foreign companies here, have all my friends around me, all my relatives around me, and still be professional in what I'm doing and my work to be appreciated. I'm still doing this, and I think it's pretty good way to spend your life, and it's not limiting in any way. I'm happy that this process is going on, and I believe there is plenty of space for Bulgaria to cover even more technologies and areas. This is just to come, because digitizing for the world economy is just starting, according to me. Not worried that we'll be without job or it will be closed. We just need to be smart. Also train and actually educate the people properly from the school, then the university, and then the things will come natively in the years. Thank you.
I'd like to add something. The fact that so many companies have already opened offices here is saying a lot, and there are new companies that are coming every day. I know, because they're stealing our developers, so they are. I would like to add that maybe even just historically we've been through a lot, so I think that as a nation we have the specific to always try to find a way out. And when it comes to programming and the world of IT, I think we're always capable of finding a very interesting way out and to solve interesting problems. So I would say that as a destination for the IT industry, we are a very successful point.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree that it's been a great success story, and Bulgaria is producing some great software engineers. One problem though, Bulgaria is very small. So to be a major factor on the world stage, I think we should be looking at moving up the food chain, even not being so much outsourcing destination, but we should be outsourcing the more mundane aspects of the work and to develop more senior types of roles to have a larger impact in the world.
Okay, thank you. I think let's let the audience ask some questions. Please raise your hand if you want to ask our panel something. Anybody? Oh, come on. No questions? Okay, there is a question here.
Hello, everyone. My question is, how do you address one of the most common issues in IT companies, that is the recruitment of quality people, quality programmers? Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So far as I know, recruiting IT people, programmers for IT companies, it's hard. It's not so easy, and everyone, like most of the IT companies, struggle with it. So what is a solution that you think is viable? How do you plan on it?
Yeah, so the question was how to fix the problem of very hard recruiting IT specialists.
Maybe I would be the one to start first as an HR. Well, we've been fighting with the same thing as well, and companies are, competing with the other companies and trying to create the best conditions ever. But I would say that the solution is to actually train new people, train new developers, and developing programs for young people. Young, I mean, in terms of how much of a work experience they have, not in terms of age. Maybe that's for us at least, that's the best solution for the time being.
Yeah, definitely. I want to second that. The problem is actually a good problem. We have more demand than supply, and the only way to resolve that problem is to increase the supply. So work with the universities, work with young people, convert people from other professions into software development. It's an immense addition to any team when you get a person that's not originally with an IT background to join the team. Because they bring really the business knowledge with them, but definitely invest in kids, in students. That's the only way that will resolve that.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Currently, I mean, what is also happening in the market, successful companies, they differentiate. They differentiate with a strong culture. That is kind of baseline for their employee branding. And also for the people, it's more important really to have a good career development path, to learn from more senior people, and really to, especially for the new generation, what we see is really to work not only on business streams, but also things which are important for the society and to make impact. So there are many ways companies to improve their position. The thing that there is more demand right now is also pushing the companies to move further and to be more innovative. I mean, last week I was in London. We were taught on how to improve, how typically companies have to improve their HR. There were companies from all the sectors. I mean, all the things which were on the lecture there has been implemented by almost every software company here. So our HR policies in the IT sector, they're really following. Actually, sometimes they are even creating some of the world trends because of that high pressure situation. And it's good for the market because also companies are growing. 20 years ago, it was much different approach to the labor market. I mean, only the best were able to start a job. And there was many interviews, quite tough selection. Right now it's different. And also people choose the company they have to work for, not the companies are choosing the people. So it's a kind of different game, which is much more interesting game.
Thank you.
I will just briefly. I will just briefly echo what was said about sort of growing and developing sort of like people as well, because I think that's super, super important. And I think someone said on Twitter, I can't remember the exact words, but they said that they only hire senior developers, they just hire them 10 years before they're promoted to senior. And I think that's a really nice way of approaching it, because if you grow people and help them develop, then it's really, really important for everyone.
Thank you. Okay, do we have time for one more question? Yes, we do have time. So please raise your hand or legs. Okay, there.
I have a question. How much of a time do you, for the Bulgarian leaders of Bulgarian companies, how much of a time do you foresee for learning on the job? How much of the percentage of the usual developer do you invest in the future so that people can learn new things while working for you? In the working time?
Endless, I would say. So we learn all the way. So there is no such a kind of a fixed time frame where people have to learn to be on the job. It's a continuous challenge.
I understood the question like how much of their daily work, probably, like a percentage of their daily time and assignment. I would just support the same as my colleague, and in the company I'm coming from has actually a learning portal, so you can learn anytime and any place. And this is how you make sure that the guys are always supplied with the latest in the respective technology. It's really up to the person then how much he wants to go further and how much he wants to learn. But definitely, this was in part of my previous discussion notes, that you have to keep on going and even change your vision, change your technology and preferences in order to be current. How much time we spend, I think depends on the company, how innovative it is, but could be 10%, could be 50%. It's up to the company and their goals.
I'll give a straight answer, but I'll start with a joke first. So CEO and the CFO are talking about the training budget. And the CFO, the financial director, the financial guy says, okay, so we will invest this amount of money into training people, but what if they learn and they leave? And the answer of the CEO is, okay, but what if we don't invest in them learning and they stay? So there's a couple of things. The politically correct answer is we are learning all the time, on the job, blah, blah. The real answer is actually everybody should be striving to learn every day something new. and the company is there to support you. So there's a lot of investment in every reasonable company and every sustainable company in learning. I promised a straight answer. My estimate is between 25 and 35% of the time of people goes into learning. And learning is not only learning new technologies, it's also attacking a new problem. So for example, if you have a design spike or research spike during a sprint or something like that, it's also learning. It's some problem that you never faced before, so you try to learn that. And stay away from companies that will not allow you to do that. When you say, okay, I need a week or a month to research, probably a month is a lot. So you have to break it down. But definitely, it's like a litmus test whether people are allowed to actually spend time on researching stuff, not only the trainings.
Yeah, if I can pick that up as well. The best way to do learning is by doing. We all know that. The question is then, how do you get to do the interesting stuff when you're stuck in things that are not interesting, like doing layouts? Nobody likes that, right? So it's one part of the job that you need to do, but I think the important message is that you need to stay relevant. You need to count on yourself to evolve, and that is something that is a must for every professional. Even though you might be working at something dull today, it doesn't mean that you don't need to spend time on researching stuff, how they are doing things today. And it's very important for everyone to stay relevant. Yes, there can be a time where, the company would give you 25% of your time to research on things that potentially might be useful. In reality, what is useful is what you learn and directly implement. So I would be going for that type of approach. If I have a problem, I would find the best thing that can help me resolve the problem, and I would research it. And I think that is the mindset that the people should be aiming in order to get better. This is how we work.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to talk a little bit about open source and how that helped me introduce learning into the company. So many companies today are using open source projects, and I started using OpenEJB years and years ago, found a bug in it, went to my boss and said, I need to fix this bug, is it okay if I work on this bug? And he's like, yeah, go for it. So I started to work on the bug, and I fixed the bug and submitted a patch. That process took me into my evening, so I started about lunchtime and I probably finished about midnight. I wasn't really thinking about the time. I was enjoying the process of actually fixing this bug and making a submission, and that's how I got into open source. And I've tried to introduce that to any employer that I've worked for recently, or since then, is to say, we're using this open source software, so we should look after this open source software. Can we dedicate a specific amount of time towards developing that open source software? And when you start doing that, as I just mentioned, the enthusiasm of doing that takes you into your free time, and you're constantly learning, but you don't realize you're learning. You are just learning, and you're happy to do it. And so I think if you can get your bosses to say, give them a reason for you to spend that time doing the research that you need to do, then they're usually very happy to accept that. And I would always say, go for open source. It's a really good way of spending your free time if you want to learn new stuff, because you meet a whole bunch of people across the globe. You're not just talking to someone across a desk. The whole globe is open to you, and the amount of information you get from people across the globe is amazing.
One thing I'd like to point out is that, yes, there are employers that give you very generous learning time, which is great, but then the problem is that we are sometimes pressed with unrealistic deadlines, and you end up not spending much time learning and doing quick fixes to get you out of the situation. So I think that's the biggest impediment against learning, is unrealistic deadlines. After having worked in 5 different European countries, one thing I noticed that Bulgarian developers are among the hardest working I've dealt with, which is great. That's the key to the success of our industry. But this lets employers push these overly ambitious deadlines, which can be a problem for the ongoing learning. So that's something to have in mind for the leaders. It's not just a matter of allowing the time, but just creating the conditions that people can do their job right and also spend time learning, even if it's learning on the job while doing the task or attending courses or whatever it is. People need to feel comfortable to do it.
Just to pick up on that, hard work. If you're finding you're developing is hard work, you need to look at people that are driving ambulances, going out and saving people's lives. That's hard work. And what we do is fun, and if you're finding it's not fun, then you need to redirect your focus, because what we do is fun. It's easy. It's hard for people that don't do it, but it's easy for us because we like doing it. So try and focus on the things that you enjoy doing. And we've already learned today that companies are just dying for us. It's our market. So if you're stuck in a job with some non-serious deadlines, then go and find a job where you're actually enjoying what you're doing.
Okay, any other? I think we're a bit behind schedule. I'm sorry for that. But hey.
It's because we're enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, we are having some time to learn new things, 20% plus. So I think that's all for this discussion. Panel, thank you for participating. And thanks to our speakers, of course. Please give a big applause to them.